Hello there, my sleepy citizens. Tonight, we journey into the shadowed streets of Gotham City, where mysteries lurk and the Dark Knight stands vigilant against the forces of chaos. We bring you tales of Batman, uncovering different sides of the man behind the mask. And as our journey through these stories winds down, a calm ambience of Gotham's streets will carry you throughout the night, bringing you to restful sleep without interruptions from any ads. If you enjoy these tales, please be sure to give us a like, subscribe, and let me know in the comments what story you'd like to hear next. But for now, let's get cozy and step into the world of Gotham. Rain fell in gentle sheets over Gotham City, washing the grime from its gargoyles and gathering in rivulets that whispered down into the vast network of sewers below. Batman stood motionless on a rooftop, the water streaming off his cape in silvery threads as he watched the scene unfold at Arkham Asylum's East Wing. Emergency lights cast pulsing red shadows across the grounds where guards hurried through the downpour, their shouts muffled by the steady drumming of rain. The containment chamber has been compromised. Oracle's voice came through his cowl, calm yet urgent. Clayface broke free during the electrical surge when lightning hit the main generator. Batman's eyes narrowed as he surveyed the chaos. Casualties? None reported, but the guards described something unusual. They're saying Clayface didn't escape as one entity. He fractured, split into multiple forms that each went in. This was concerning news. Basil Carlo, the man who had become Clayface, had been showing signs of increasing instability during his confinement. His clay-like form, once under his conscious control, had begun exhibiting autonomous behaviors, parts of him seemingly acting with independent purpose. "Send me the security footage," Batman requested, already firing his grapnel toward the next building. The familiar sensation of weightlessness followed as he swung through Gotham's rain-washed canyons of steel and glass, heading toward the asylum's drainage outlets, where Clayface would most likely have fled. The footage arrived as he landed on a maintenance platform overlooking the main drainage channel. What he saw confirmed Oracle's report and deepened his concern. In the grainy night vision recording, Clayface's body appeared to be tearing itself apart, not in his usual tactical manner, but as if engaged in civil war. 4 distinct masses separated from the whole, each forming crude features before slithering away through different vents and drains. "Master Bruce?" Alfred's voice joined the communication. "I've been reviewing Dr. Arkham's latest psychological evaluation of Mr. Carlo. It seems our actor friend has been experiencing what the doctor terms identity fragmentation, his consciousness splintering into discrete emotional states, each with increasing autonomy." Batman crouched at the edge of the platform, studying the churning waters below. The rain had swollen the flow, carrying anything or anyone far into Gotham's labyrinthine sewer system. "Explain." "According to the report," Alfred continued, "Clayface's physical instability has begun to mirror psychological fragmentation. Dr. Arkham theorized that distinct emotional aspects of Carlo's personality were developing their own agency within his malleable form. Rage, sorrow, ambition, guilt, each finding physical expression in his clay body. Batman activated his cowl's spectral analysis, scanning the water for traces of Clayface's unique biochemical signature. "And now those fragments have physically separated." "Precisely, sir. And I fear time may be of the essence." Dr. Arkham noted that should these fragments remain separated too long, the dissolution might become permanent, both physically and mentally. A faint reading caught Batman's attention, trace elements matching Clayface's composition, leading toward the eastern tunnels. He fired his grapnel again, swinging down to follow the trail. Oracle, alert the GCPD. Have them establish a perimeter around all major sewer outlets, but warn them not to engage directly. These fragments may be more unpredictable than Clayface at his worst. On it, she responded. What exactly are we dealing with here? 4 miniature Clayfaces? Batman dropped into the tunnel, the splash of his landing swallowed by the rushing water. Not exactly. If Alfred's assessment is correct, we're dealing with 4 emotional aspects of Carlo's personality, each with only partial awareness, each dangerous in its own way. The tunnel stretched before him, its ancient brick walls glistening in the beam of his flashlight. The water pulled at his boots as he moved forward, following the faint traces of Clayface's biochemical trail. The asylum's drainage system would eventually join Gotham's main sewers, a vast underground network where a being like Clayface could remain hidden indefinitely. I've taken the liberty of contacting Dr. Leslie Tompkins, Alfred said. She treated Basil Carlo years ago, before his transformation. She may have insights into his current condition. Batman nodded, though no one could see the gesture. Leslie was one of the few people who remembered Carlo as a man rather than a monster, who had known the talented actor before Hollywood's cruelty and his own desperate choices had transformed him into Clayface. The trail grew stronger as he reached a junction where multiple tunnels converged. Here, the biochemical signature split, following different paths into the darkness. Batman paused, studying the readings carefully. The fragments separated here, he reported. 4 distinct trails, each with slight variations in molecular structure. The difference may correspond to the emotional state each fragment represents, Alfred suggested. Their chemical composition would reflect the neurological patterns of the emotions driving them. Batman considered this. If that's true, then each fragment will behave according to a dominant emotional drive, without the balancing influence of Carlo's complete personality, making them potentially more dangerous, yet more predictable, Alfred observed. Pure emotion lacks the nuance that makes human behavior complex. That assessment matched Batman's own thinking. He logged the direction of each trail, creating a map of the fragments' diverging paths. One led deeper into the old sewers beneath the financial district. Another curved toward the waterfront. The third headed toward Midtown, while the fourth, the weakest signature, meandered toward Bristol, the affluent suburb where Wayne Manor itself stood. I need to track them individually, starting with the strongest signature, Batman decided. Oracle, use the city's seismic monitors to track unusual movements through the sewer system. These fragments should register as anomalous mass displacements. Already accessing the grid, she replied. I'm seeing activity beneath the financial district. Something large is moving through the maintenance tunnels under Gotham First National. That matched the strongest trail. Batman moved with renewed purpose, following the ancient brick passageway that would lead him toward the heart of the city. The rushing water grew shallower as he progressed upward, away from the main drainage channels. So, Alfred's voice had a note of discovery. I've been reviewing the asylum's records of Clayface's recent behavior. There's a pattern to the fragmentation Dr. Arkham observed. Each episode corresponded with significant emotional triggers. Mentions of his acting career, visitors from his past, news about former colleagues. He's been reliving his trauma, Batman said, understanding. And each emotional response has been strengthening the fragmentation. Yes, and the fragment beneath the financial district may be significant. Gotham First National financed several of the films Carlo starred in before his fall from grace. including, notably, the Mud King series that made him famous. The Mud King. Batman remembered those films from his childhood, gothic horror pictures where Carlo had played a tragic monster, a being of earth and clay who longed for humanity. Life had imitated art in the cruelest way possible when Carlo later transformed himself with experimental clay-based treatments, becoming the very monster he had once portrayed. The rage fragment, Batman concluded. It would be drawn to symbols of his past glory and subsequent rejection. The tunnel opened into a larger maintenance chamber beneath the bank. Here, the century-old brick gave way to modern concrete, with access ladders leading up to the utility level beneath the street. Batman's sensors indicated that Clayface's signature had passed through recently, heading upward. Oracle, any unusual activity reported at Gotham First National. Security systems went offline 3 minutes ago, she confirmed. GCPD is responding, but they're reporting flooding in the lower levels. Not flooding, Clayface. Batman ascended the access ladder rapidly, emerging in a service corridor beneath the bank. The air here was different, thick with moisture and carrying a distinctive earthy scent he recognized immediately. Clayface had been here, recently. A distant crash echoed through the corridor, followed by the sound of tearing metal. Batman moved toward the sound, passing through a damaged security door that had been wrenched from its frame. Beyond lay the bank's main vault level, where water pooled on the marble floor and alarm lights flashed silently, their sirens disabled. The vault door itself, 3 feet of reinforced steel, lay crumpled against the far wall, as if it were aluminum foil. And inside, amidst safe deposit boxes torn from their housings, stood a figure that was only vaguely humanoid. This version of Clayface bore little resemblance to Basil Carlo's usual form. Where Carlo typically maintained a crude but recognizable human shape, this creature was a churning mass of clay, its surface rippling with constant motion like a stormy sea. Its only stable features were its eyes, glowing amber orbs filled with undiluted fury, and hands that ended in massive, blade-like protrusions. "Money!" the creature growled, its voice a deep rumble that seemed to emanate from everywhere and nowhere. "They took everything, my fame, my face, my future." It wasn't after the money, Batman realized. It was destroying it, ripping apart safe deposit boxes that likely contained financial records dating back decades, including the contracts and financial agreements that had bound Carlo to the studios that eventually discarded him. "Carlo," Batman said, keeping his voice steady as he stepped into the creature's field of vision. "This won't change what happened to you." The creature's head swiveled, those burning eyes fixing on Batman with focused hatred. "Not Carlo. Carlo was weak. Carlo begged. Carlo compromised." The clay mass surged higher, nearly touching the ceiling. "I am what they made. I am rage." It moved with surprising speed, a tsunami of clay rushing across the vault floor. Batman fired his grapnel upward, pulling himself to the ceiling as the rage fragment crashed against the wall beneath him with enough force to crack the reinforced concrete. "The fragment identifies as pure rage," Batman reported through his comms. No sign of Carlo's complete consciousness or memory. "Just as we feared," Alfred replied. "Without the moderating influence of his complete personality, each fragment embodies a singular emotional drive." The rage fragment recovered quickly, its body already reforming as it tracked Batman's movement. Tendrils of clay shot upward, trying to snare him as he swung toward the vault entrance. "Sir, consider that conventional containment may be ineffective," Alfred suggested. "If this entity is pure rage, perhaps emotional countermeasures would be more effective than physical ones." Batman understood immediately. He couldn't fight this creature physically. It would only feed the rage driving it. Instead, he needed to address the emotion itself. Landing in the corridor outside the vault, Batman accessed his cowl's database, quickly retrieving information about Basil Karlo's career. As the rage fragment pursued him, he began speaking in a calm, measured voice. Your first role was in Midnight Shadows, 1993. A small part, but the critics noticed you. Karlo brings depth to what could have been a throwaway character, the Gotham Gazette wrote. The clay mass slowed fractionally, those burning eyes flickering with something beyond rage. Recognition, perhaps. Then came The Lighthouse Keeper in 95. Your first leading role? You were nominated for the Golden Palm. The fragment advance hesitated further, its form rippling, as if conflicting currents moved within it. And The Mud King in 97. Your masterpiece. The role you were born to play. Stop! The creature's voice had changed, less rumble and more human. Those memories, they're not mine alone. They belong to Basil Karlo, Batman confirmed. All of him, not just his rage, but his pride, his artistry, his humanity. The clay mass sank lower, spreading across the floor as if losing cohesion. I remember, but it's not complete. The others, they have the rest. Batman approached carefully, removing a specialized containment device from his utility belt, a small disc that would create an electromagnetic field tuned to stabilize Clayface's molecular structure. The other fragments of yourself. You need them to be whole again. No! The rage surged back, the clay rising up in deadly spikes. They are weak. I am strong. I am pure. You're incomplete, Batman countered, dodging the spikes with practiced agility. And you're dissolving. Without the others, you won't survive. This was true. Batman could see the molecular instability in the fragment's form. At the edges, the clay was losing cohesion, tiny particles separating and dissolving into the water on the floor. The fragment was literally falling apart. Look at yourself, Batman urged. You're only one aspect of Karlo. You need the others to maintain your form. The creature extended a pseudopod toward a broken security mirror on the wall, its amber eyes widening at its reflection. Where it expected to see Clayface's familiar features, there was only a vaguely humanoid shape, constantly shifting and eroding at the edges. Breaking apart, it moaned, the rage momentarily supplanted by fear, need. Others. Let me help you, Batman said, activating the containment device. It emitted a soft blue field that enveloped the fragment, stabilizing its deteriorating structure. This will keep you intact until we can find the other fragments. The creature didn't resist as Batman expanded the field to fully contain it. Within the electromagnetic boundary, the clay settled into a more stable form, still recognizable as the rage aspect, but no longer actively disintegrating. Com fragment secured, Batman reported. The containment field is holding, but it's temporary. We need to locate the others quickly. Tompkins has arrived at the cave, Alfred informed him. She's reviewing Karlo's medical history and has some rather illuminating insights about his condition. I'll bring this fragment to the auxiliary containment unit in the downtown cache, Batman decided. Meet me there with Leslie. The downtown cache was one of several hidden facilities Batman maintained throughout Gotham. Smaller versions of the Batcave equipped with essential technology and accessible through concealed entrances. This one was located beneath an abandoned subway station, accessible through maintenance tunnels connected to the sewer system. As Batman transported the contained rage fragment through the sewers, He monitored the degradation of its molecular structure. Even with the stabilizing field, the separation from the other fragments was causing accelerated deterioration. Time was indeed running out. Dr. Leslie Tompkins was waiting at the cache when Batman arrived, her practical medical coat incongruous against the advanced technology of the facility. Alfred stood beside her, his expression grave as they watched Batman secure the fragment in a larger containment unit. Fascinating and disturbing in equal measure, Leslie said, studying the clay mass through the transparent containment wall. When I treated Basil years ago, I never imagined his psychological fragmentation would manifest so literally. You believe this confirms Dr. Arkham's diagnosis? Batman asked. Leslie nodded, her experienced eyes noting details only a physician would see. Basil always compartmentalized his emotions. It was how he survived in Hollywood, separating his true self from his public persona. When the experimental treatments transformed his body into malleable clay, that psychological pattern became a physical reality. The physical mirroring the psychological, Alfred observed. His body became as fluid as his identity. Precisely. Leslie moved closer to the containment field, watching how the fragment responded to her presence. I treated him for depression after his career collapsed. He described feeling like different people from day to day, the rage, the sorrow, the desperate ambition that drove him to try the treatments that ultimately transformed him. And now those aspects have literally separated, Batman said. Yes, but they can't survive independently, Leslie confirmed. Each fragment contains only part of the neural patterns that make up Basil's complete consciousness. Without the others, the patterns will degrade until there's nothing left of the man he was. Batman studied the containment readings. The fragment is already showing signs of cognitive deterioration. Its speech patterns are becoming more primitive, less connected to Carlo's memories. Then we have perhaps 24 hours before the separation becomes irreversible, Leslie estimated. After that, even reuniting the fragments won't restore Basil's complete consciousness. Oracle. Batman activated his comm. Status on the other fragments? I've got possible locations on 2 of them, she responded. The waterfront fragment has entered the old Gotham Harbor Spa and Resort. You know, that abandoned health club where the wealthy used to take mud baths in the 30s. The connection is obvious, Alfred noted. A location where clay was once considered therapeutic rather than monstrous. And the 3rd fragment? Batman asked. Moving through Robinson Park, heading toward the Botanical Gardens, Oracle reported. It's moving more slowly than the others, almost carefully. The sorrow fragment would be drawn to beauty, Leslie suggested. Basil always found solace in art and nature, even at his lowest points. And the 4th? Still tracking, Oracle said. The signature is weaker, harder to isolate. Last readings had it moving toward Bristol, but I've lost the trail near the reservoir. Batman considered the tactical approach. I need to secure the fragments quickly, before they deteriorate further or harm civilians. The waterfront location is closest. I'll start there. I'll continue analyzing this fragment's deterioration pattern, Leslie offered. It may give us insight into how to stabilize the others when you find them. And I shall coordinate from here, Alfred added. The Batwing is standing by if you need rapid transport between locations. Batman nodded, already moving toward the exit. As he departed, he glanced back at the rage fragment, now pulsing weakly within its containment field. Time was running out for Clayface, not just for his physical form, but for whatever remained of the man inside the monster. The abandoned Gotham Harbor Spa and Resort loomed against the night sky, its once grand Art Deco facade now crumbling into the encroaching waters of the harbor. Batman approached from the rooftops of neighboring warehouses, studying the structure through his cowl's multiple vision modes. The fragment's signature is strongest in the eastern wing, Oracle informed him. That would be the therapeutic bath section, according to the original blueprints. Batman grappled to the spa's roof, finding an access point through a partially collapsed skylight. The interior was a study in decayed opulence. Marble floors cracked and buckled, gilded columns tarnished green with verdigris. Elaborate murals faded to ghostly impressions on the walls. This facility specialized in clay-based treatments, Alfred noted through the comm, particularly popular among Gotham's elite who believed in the healing properties of specially formulated mud baths. Carlo would have known this place, Batman said, moving silently through the ruined grandeur. His film career put him in the same circles as the clientele. Indeed, according to the society pages from that era, he was a frequent guest. Before his fall from grace, of course, water dripped steadily from the ceiling, forming shallow pools on the marble floor. Batman followed the Clayface signature toward what had once been the main treatment area, a vast circular chamber surrounded by private rooms. Moonlight filtered through broken skylights, casting strange patterns across the space. As he entered the main chamber, Batman immediately spotted the Clayface fragment. Unlike the rage aspect, this one had formed a more recognizable shape. A slumped, humanoid figure sitting at the edge of what had once been the central therapeutic pool. Its clay surface was smoother, less turbulent, and its color was a deeper, sadder brown. It was weeping. The sound was unmistakable, a soft, rhythmic sobbing that echoed through the empty chamber. As the clay figure cried, parts of its body would liquefy, dripping into the pool before being reabsorbed. It hadn't noticed Batman's arrival, lost in its sorrow. "The second fragment," Batman whispered into his comm. "This appears to be the embodiment of Carlo's sorrow." "Approach with caution, sir," Alfred advised. "Grief can be as destructive as rage in its way." Batman stepped forward deliberately, making just enough noise to alert the fragment to his presence without startling it. The clay figure's head turned slowly, revealing features that more closely resembled Basil Carlo than the rage fragment had. Same broad forehead and strong jaw, but with exaggerated expressions of melancholy. "Batman," it said, its voice a hollow echo of Carlo's rich actor's tone. "Have you come to witness what remains of me, the sorrow that outlived the man?" "I've come to help you, Carlo," Batman replied, moving closer with measured steps. The fragment smiled sadly. "Carlo. Yes, I was him once, or part of him, the part that felt every rejection, every cruel review, every betrayal." It gestured at the ruined spa around them. "I used to come here, you know, when I was still human, seeking healing for my body while my soul drowned in despair." "You're deteriorating," Batman observed, noting the same molecular instability he'd seen in the rage fragment. "Without the other parts of yourself, you can't maintain cohesion." "Is that such a terrible fate?" the fragment asked, watching as more of its substance dripped away. "To finally dissolve? To end the sorrow that has defined me for so long?" "That's not all that defines you," Batman countered, removing another containment device from his belt. "You're more than your sorrow, Carlo. The other fragments, your rage, your ambition, even your guilt, they're all parts of a whole person." The fragment's features shifted, momentarily showing a flicker of Carlo's true face, the man beneath the monster. "I remember them distantly, like characters I once played." It looked down at its dissolving hands. "But why reunite? What life awaits Clayface but more suffering?" "A chance," Batman said simply. "Not guaranteed happiness, but a chance at wholeness again. The choice to be more than the sum of your fragmented emotions." The sorrow fragment considered this, its form momentarily stabilizing as a new thought displaced its endless grief. The others, have you found them? 1. The rage. It's safe, but deteriorating like you are. We need to find the others quickly. Ambition, the fragment said softly. It would seek beauty. It could reshape. Control. Something to perfect. Its features shifted again, struggling to maintain form as memories surfaced. And guilt. My guilt. It hides in darkness, away from judging eyes. Batman activated the containment device, creating another stabilizing field. This will help you maintain cohesion until we can reunite all the fragments. To his surprise, the sorrow fragment moved willingly into the field, seeming almost relieved as the energy boundary stabilized its dissolving form. Oh, strange, it murmured. I feel less alone within these limits. Connection creates stability, Batman observed. Even artificial connection. A philosophy lesson from the Batman. The fragment's tone carried a hint of Carlo's former sardonic humor. Perhaps sorrow has made a philosopher of us both. As Batman secured the contained fragment for transport, Oracle's voice came through his comm with new urgency. Batman, situation developing at Robinson Park. The third fragment has encountered a civilian, a teenage girl who appears to be communicating with it. Identity of the civilian. Running facial recognition now. Got a match. Mira Sanchez, age 16. Reported missing from Gotham East Side Youth Shelter 3 weeks ago. Known to frequent the park. A runaway teen encountering a fragment of Clayface. The situation could become dangerous quickly. I'm on my way, Batman responded. Have the Batwing ready for fragment transport. Already inbound to your location, Alfred confirmed. Batman secured the sorrow fragment on the roof of the spa, where the Batwing could retrieve it using automated systems. As he prepared to depart for Robinson Park, the fragment spoke again, its voice fading as molecular degradation continued despite the containment field. We were all Basil once, it said distantly, before life broke us apart, before we broke ourselves. The observation lingered in Batman's mind as he traveled toward Robinson Park. There was something uncomfortably familiar in the idea of a fragmented self, parts of one's identity separated and at war with each other. Wasn't that, in some way, the duality he himself lived every day? Bruce Wayne and Batman, sometimes in harmony, sometimes in conflict. Robinson Park's botanical gardens were closed to the public at this hour, but Batman easily bypassed the security systems. According to Oracle's tracking, the third Clayface fragment had moved to the central greenhouse, a massive Victorian glass structure housing Gotham's most exotic plant specimens. As he approached the greenhouse, Batman could see light within, not the security lighting, but what appeared to be improvised lanterns casting a warm glow through the glass panes. He moved to a higher vantage point, using his cowl's enhanced vision to observe the interior before entering. What he saw was unexpected. The clay fragment had formed a more complete human shape than any previous fragment, a figure recognizably Basil Carlo, though still composed of shifting clay. It was methodically arranging plants and stones in artistic configurations, creating elaborate sculptural forms throughout the greenhouse. And sitting nearby, watching with evident fascination, was a teenage girl matching Mira Sanchez's description. Thin, with short-cropped dark hair and clothes that had seen better days. I've located the third fragment and the civilian, Batman reported quietly. They appeared to be dating, collaborating on some kind of artistic project. The ambition fragment, Alfred surmised. creating, shaping, seeking to manifest something significant. The artist aspect of Carlo's personality. Batman listened to the conversation inside as he planned his approach. "That's amazing," the girl was saying, watching as the clay figure extended pseudopods to delicately reposition flowering vines. "How do you make it look so natural?" "Art requires vision beyond the obvious," the fragment replied, its voice a more natural version of Carlo's than either previous fragment had managed. Seeing the sculpture within the stone, the arrangement hiding within chaos. I was a creator once, a performer who could transform into anyone. "You mean when you were an actor? Before I became this?" The clay figure gestured to its unstable form. "Yes, but even this form has potential for creation, for beauty." It paused, part of its arm suddenly losing cohesion and dripping to the ground. Though not for much longer, it seems. The girl moved closer, concerned. "What's happening to you?" "Dissolution. Fragmentation." It struggled to reabsorb the fallen clay. "I am incomplete. Parts of myself are missing. The rage that drove me, the sorrow that defined me, even the guilt that anchored me to my humanity." Batman decided to make his presence known, entering the greenhouse through a maintenance door rather than more dramatically from above. Still, his appearance startled the girl, who jumped to her feet protectively in front of the clay figure. "Stay back," she warned. "He's not hurting anyone." "I'm not here to hurt him, Mira," Batman said, using her name deliberately to establish a connection. "I'm trying to help him." The ambition fragment regarded Batman with more composure than the previous fragments had shown. The Dark Knight himself. "I would bow, but as you can see, my form is somewhat unstable." It made a gesture that caused more clay to drip from its arm. "Have you come to return me to Arkham? What remains of it, at least?" "I've come to reunite you with the other fragments of yourself," Batman explained. "You're deteriorating. Without becoming whole again, you'll completely dissolve within hours." The girl looked alarmed. "Dissolve? You mean die?" "Not exactly death," the fragment corrected gently. "More like losing coherence. The memories, the consciousness that makes me part of Basil Carlo, all fading into nothing but mindless clay." "That can't happen!" Mira turned to Batman with unexpected fierceness. "You have to help him." "That's why I'm here." Batman removed another containment device from his belt. "This will stabilize your molecular structure temporarily," he explained to the fragment. "I've already secured 2 other fragments. We need to find the final piece of you before it's too late." The ambition fragment studied the device with evident interest. Ingenious design. The electromagnetic harmonics would indeed slow the degradation process. It looked up at Batman with something like professional respect. "Your technical accomplishments continue to impress, even after all our encounters." Mira stepped between them again. "Wait, if you take him, will he still be him, my friend?" The question carried legitimate emotional weight. Batman could see that the girl had formed a genuine bond with the fragment, perhaps the first positive human connection she'd experienced since running away. "The complete Clayface will contain all aspects of himself, including this one," Batman explained carefully, "but they'll be integrated, not separate personalities. Your friend is only one facet of a whole person, a person who's done terrible things," Myra said quietly. "Mira told me about his past, the people he's hurt." "Yes," the fragment acknowledged, "though that burden lies most heavily with my missing piece, the guilt that remembers every wrong I've committed." It turned to the girl with genuine affection. "Mira, Batman is right. I cannot survive like this, and the part of me you've befriended deserves to rejoin the whole. Perhaps the complete Basil will remember your kindness. The girl's shoulders slumped, but she nodded. Promise you'll try to help him, not just lock him away again. Batman met her gaze directly. I promise to try. The ambition fragment moved willingly into the containment field, its form stabilizing as the energy boundary took effect. My creative endeavors must pause, it seems, though perhaps there's art even in reunification. With the third fragment secured, Batman turned to the issue of Mira herself. You can't stay here, he told her. The botanical gardens have security patrols. I know all their schedules, she said with the practiced confidence of a long-term runaway. Where else am I supposed to go, not back to that shelter? What about Dr. Leslie Tompkins' clinic? She has a youth program. Mira's expression showed recognition. The doctor lady who doesn't ask questions? I've heard of her, but why would she take me in? Because I'll ask her to, Batman said simply, and because you've shown compassion to someone most people would fear. The girl considered this, then nodded cautiously. I'll check it out. No promises. Fair enough. Batman activated his comm. Oracle, contact Leslie. Tell her she'll have a new patient for her youth program. He turned back to Mira. There's a clinic van that stops at the park entrance every night at 11 p.m. Tell them Batman sent you. As the Batwing arrived to transport the contained fragment, Batman prepared to continue his search for the final piece of Clayface. The guilt fragment, potentially the most dangerous, not for its physical capabilities but for its emotional manipulations. Oracle, status on the fourth fragment? Finally got a solid reading, she replied. It's near Bristol, as we suspected, specifically at Gotham Cemetery. The location sent a chill through Batman that had nothing to do with the night air. Gotham Cemetery was where Thomas and Martha Wayne were buried. If the guilt fragment had gone there specifically... Sir? Alfred's voice carried unmistakable concern. If this fragment represents Carlo's guilt, it may attempt to manipulate through emotional triggers, personal ones. I'm aware of the risk, Batman responded, already moving toward the Batwing for rapid transport. Have the auxiliary chamber prepared for all four fragments. We'll need to attempt reunification as soon as possible. As the Batwing carried him toward Bristol, Batman reflected on what he'd observed in the three fragments so far. Each contained elements of Basil Carlo's complete personality, yet each was dangerously incomplete, lacking the balance that made a whole person functional. The rage without compassion, the sorrow without hope, the ambition without restraint, and now the guilt. Perhaps the most human aspect, yet potentially the most dangerous, when isolated from forgiveness or redemption. Gotham Cemetery was shrouded in fog as Batman approached, the moonlight creating ghostly halos around the ancient monuments and mausoleums. He moved silently among the graves, following the faint biochemical signature that indicated Clayface's presence. The trail led him inevitably towards the Wayne family plot, a simple but elegant area marked by tasteful monuments rather than ostentatious displays of wealth. Even from a distance, Batman could see that something was wrong. The familiar headstones of his parents seemed to be moving, shifting in the moonlight. As he drew closer, the illusion became clear. The gilt fragment of Clayface had formed itself into the gravestones themselves, creating a perfect replica of the Wayne monuments while extending tendrils through the surrounding earth. It was a defensive posture, Batman realized, hiding as the very symbols that would most affect him emotionally. I know you're there, Carlo, Batman said, stopping at the edge of the family plot. This form won't protect you for a moment, Nothing happened. Then, slowly, the false monuments began to shift, clay flowing upward to form a hunched, hooded figure that resembled the classic portrayal of death, a psychological choice that spoke volumes about this fragment's self-perception. "No," the figure agreed, its voice barely above a whisper. "Nothing protects from guilt. You know this better than most." The use of his name was a calculated attack, revealing that this fragment retained Clayface's knowledge of Batman's identity. "You're deteriorating faster than the others," Batman observed, noting the extreme molecular instability in the fragment's form. "Guilt is consuming you from within." "As it should," the fragment replied. "Do you know why I came here, to these graves? Because I understand your guilt, your loss. Mine is different. I created my own monsters, chose my own damnation, but guilt itself is universal." As it spoke, the clay began to flow and reshape, forming two human figures rising from the ground, perfect replicas of Thomas and Martha Wayne as they appeared in life. "Your greatest failure," the fragment whispered as the clay simulacra stepped forward. "The moment that defined you, just as my failures defined me." Batman remained still, refusing to let the psychological manipulation affect him visibly. "These are just shapes, Carlo. Clay and memories, nothing more." "Are they?" The fragment's voice came from everywhere and nowhere as its consciousness seemed to spread through all the clay forms. "Memories have power. Guilt gives them weight. Your parents died because you wanted to see a movie. I became a monster because I wanted to be famous again. Different paths, same destination, endless guilt." The clay figures of Thomas and Martha Wayne approached Batman, their features perfectly rendered down to the smallest detail, a testament to Clayface's artistic control even in this fragmented state. "We're not disappointed, son," the Thomas replica said in a flawless imitation of a voice Batman could barely remember. "We're proud of what you've become. This isn't the life we wanted for you," the Martha figure added, reaching out a clay hand toward Batman's face. "Always fighting, always alone." Batman stepped back, avoiding the touch. "Enough, Carlo. These manipulations won't work." "Aren't they working already?" the fragment's voice asked as the clay figures continued their approach. "Your heart rate has increased. Your muscles are tensing, not from fear of me, but from fear of forgiveness you don't believe you deserve." The observation struck uncomfortably close to truth. Batman activated his cow's biochemical scanner, analyzing the fragment's deteriorating structure. "Your molecular cohesion is failing rapidly. Without reuniting with the other fragments, you'll be gone within an hour." "Perhaps that's justice," the guild fragment said as its hooded form began to sink back into the earth. "The death of guilt. Freedom through disintegration." "It's not freedom," Batman countered. "It's erasure. You won't be absolved. You'll simply cease to exist. Is that really what you want? To disappear rather than face your actions?" The clay figures of his parents froze, their features suddenly less distinct as the fragment's control wavered. "What alternative exists? Return to Arkham? Continue this half-life as neither man nor monster?" "Reunification," Batman said, removing the final containment device, becoming whole again. Confronting your guilt as part of a complete consciousness, not isolated from all other aspects of yourself. The hooded figure rose slightly from the ground, its form barely maintaining cohesion. "The others, you found them?" "All three. They're stabilized but deteriorating like you are. This is your last chance, Carlo. Not for redemption, that would be a false promise, but for wholeness. For the possibility of change." The clay figures of Thomas and Martha Wayne melted back into formless mass as the fragment considered Batman's words. "Wholeness. it repeated softly. I haven't been whole since... I can't remember when. Let me help you remember, Batman said, activating the containment field. For a moment the fragment seemed to resist, the clay pulling away from the energy boundary. Then, with what seemed like resignation, it allowed itself to flow into the containment device, its form stabilizing into the hooded figure once more. Your guilt is part of you, Batman said as he secured the final fragment. But it doesn't have to define you completely. That's true for both of us. With all 4 fragments contained and stabilized, Batman returned to the downtown cache where Alfred and Dr. Tompkins waited, with the specialized equipment needed for attempted reunification. The auxiliary chamber had been transformed into a makeshift laboratory, with the 3 previously captured fragments held in a triangular arrangement around a central platform. The molecular deterioration has accelerated in all fragments, Leslie reported as Batman added the 4th container to the arrangement. We have perhaps 20 minutes before neural cohesion becomes impossible. Alfred gestured to a modified version of the containment technology. We've adapted your electromagnetic stabilizers to create a harmonic field that should draw the fragments together rather than keeping them separate. If Dr. Arkham's theories about Clayface's physical structure are correct, the fragments should naturally reintegrate when brought into proper proximity. And if they don't? Batman asked. Leslie's expression was grave. Then Basil Carlo effectively dies. Not his body, which would continue as separate masses of mindless clay, but his consciousness, his memories, everything that made him a person. Batman studied the 4 fragments, each displaying distinct characteristics, even within their containment fields. The rage fragment pulsed with angry energy. The sorrow fragment seemed to be weeping silently. The ambition fragment had formed itself into an idealized version of Carlo as he once was, and the guilt fragment remained hooded, withdrawn even from itself. Begin the process, Batman instructed. Alfred activated the modified field, creating a pulsing energy pattern that enveloped all 4 containers. Slowly, the containment boundaries began to dissolve, allowing the fragments to sense each other's presence. Molecular attraction detected, Leslie reported, monitoring the readings. The fragments are responding to each other's biochemical signatures. The 4 clay masses began to move toward the central platform, each changing form as they approached one another. The rage softened its jagged edges. The sorrow straightened its slumped posture. The ambition tempered its perfect self-image. The guilt lowered its concealing hood. They're recognizing each other as parts of the same whole, Alfred observed. As the fragments met at the center, there was a moment of resistance. 4 distinct masses touching but not merging, like magnets held with like poles facing. Batman could sense the struggle happening at a molecular level, the fragments both attracted to and repelled by each other, each wanting wholeness but fearing the loss of its distinct identity. The integration has stalled, Leslie said with concern, and not fully merging. Batman moved closer to the platform, studying the clay masses that represented the fractured aspects of a single consciousness. They need a catalyst, he realized, something to help them remember they're all Basil Carlo. Sir, perhaps, Alfred began, then hesitated. What is it, Alfred? Perhaps a memory, something that would resonate with all aspects of Mr. Carlo's personality simultaneously. Batman considered this, then accessed the cache's computer system. After a brief search, he found what he needed. A clip from The Mud King, Carlo's most famous film. He projected it on the wall where all fragments could perceive it. On the screen, A younger Basil Carlo delivered his character's most famous monologue. "I am neither man nor earth, but something caught between, cursed with memory, blessed with transformation. My body may be clay, but my soul remembers being human." The effect on the fragments was immediate and profound. All four masses turned toward the projection, their forms shifting in recognition. As the scene played out, the boundaries between the fragments began to blur, clay flowing into clay as molecular structures aligned. "It's working," Leslie confirmed, watching the readings. "Neural patterns are synchronizing." The merging accelerated, the four distinct colors and textures blending into a single mass that pulsed and shifted on the platform. For several minutes, the clay churned with internal conflict as the disparate emotional aspects fought for dominance within the reforming whole. Then, gradually, the movement slowed. The clay settled into a recognizable human shape. Basil Carlo, as he had appeared before his full transformation into Clayface. Though still composed entirely of clay, the figure sat up slowly, looking its hands with an expression of wonder and confusion. When it spoke, the voice was fully Carlo's, the rich, resonant tones of the trained actor. "I remember everything," he said quietly. "Being torn apart, being incomplete, your consciousness fragmented, along with your physical form," Batman explained. "Each fragment represented a different aspect of your personality." Carlo nodded slowly. "I felt it happening. Over months in Arkham, parts of me becoming autonomous. Thoughts that didn't seem like my own." He looked up at Batman with clearer eyes than Clayface had shown in years. "Why help me? After everything I've done?" "Everyone deserves a chance at wholeness," Batman said simply. "Even you, Carlo." Leslie stepped forward, medical scanner in hand. "Your molecular structure has stabilized, but you'll need ongoing treatment to maintain cohesion. The fragmentation could recur if not properly managed." "Treatment, not just containment?" Carlo asked with cautious hope. "That depends on you," Batman replied. "On which aspects of yourself you allow to dominate. The rage, the sorrow, the ambition, or the guilt, or whether you can integrate them into something more balanced." Carlo looked down at his clay hands again, watching as he controlled their shape with deliberate thought. "When I was in pieces, each fragment thought it was the real me. The rage believed itself to be my true self. So did the sorrow, the ambition, the guilt." He looked up at Batman with sudden insight. "Is that what it's like for you? Different selves competing for control?" The question was unexpectedly perceptive, touching on something Batman rarely acknowledged, even to himself. The complex relationship between Bruce Wayne and the Bat, between vengeance and justice, between the traumatized child and the disciplined vigilante. "In some ways," Batman acknowledged, "we all contain multitudes, Carlo. The difference is whether those parts work together or against each other." Clayface nodded slowly, understanding in his eyes. "I met a girl while I was fragmented, the ambition piece of me. She saw something worth saving." He looked at his hands again, watching as they shifted between human fingers and formless clay. Maybe she was right. "Mira is safe," Batman told him. "At Dr. Tompkins' clinic." "Good. That's good." Carlo's form rippled slightly, as if different emotions were causing physical reactions within the clay. "What happens now? Back to Arkham?" "For now," Batman confirmed, "but with a modified treatment plan. Dr. Arkham's notes suggested possibilities for stabilizing your condition that were never implemented." "And you'll check on my progress?" There was vulnerability in the question, the former actor seeking some connection, some acknowledgement of shared humanity. "I will," Batman promised. As arrangements were made to transport the reunified Clayface back to Arkham, Batman found himself reflecting on the parallel Carlo had drawn between them. Different selves competing for control. Wasn't that the struggle he faced daily? The angry child who lost his parents, seeking vengeance, the determined man seeking justice, the public face and the shadow self. Perhaps Alfred sensed his thoughts. As they watched Clayface being secured for transport, the butler spoke quietly, rather illuminating, seeing a personality literally fragmented, isn't it, sir? You think there's a lesson there, Alfred? Only that wholeness doesn't require perfection, merely acknowledgement and acceptance of all our aspects, even those we might prefer to deny. Alfred's knowing eyes met Batman's. Integration rather than segregation. Batman nodded thoughtfully. As dawn approached, casting pale light through the cache's concealed windows, he watched Clayface being loaded into a secure vehicle. The clay figure was calm now, his form stable, his eyes clear with a self-awareness that had been missing for years. "We're all fragmented in our way," Batman said quietly, "all struggling to be whole." "Indeed, sir," Alfred agreed. "The difference, perhaps, is that some of us have help in putting the pieces back together." As the transport departed, Batman remained standing in the growing daylight, considering the night's events and the unexpected connections they had revealed. In helping reunite the shattered aspects of Clayface, he had glimpsed something about his own divided nature. Not a weakness to be overcome, but a complexity to be understood and integrated. The cowl and cape, the boardroom suit, the playboy facade, the orphaned child, all pieces of a whole person, sometimes in conflict, but ultimately part of a single self striving for balance. Like Clayface's fragments, each had strengths and weaknesses when isolated, but found their proper purpose only when working together. With this thought, Batman prepared to return to Wayne Manor as the new day fully dawned over Gotham. The city was quiet now, its shadows retreating before the morning light. For a few hours at least, both Bruce Wayne and Batman could rest, integrated in the peace of dreamless sleep, whole, if not perfect, and accepting of both the darkness and the light within. As weeks passed following Clayface's reintegration, Batman maintained his promise, visiting Arkham regularly to monitor Basil Karlo's treatment progress. The modified protocols developed by Dr. Arkham showed promising results. Clayface's molecular structure had stabilized, the fragmentation tendencies diminishing with each passing day. More remarkably, Carlo himself displayed a level of lucidity and self-awareness that had been absent for years. During these visits, Batman noticed subtle changes in the former actor's demeanor. The rage that had once defined Clayface seemed tempered by the sorrow, guilt, and ambition that now existed in balance within him. Their conversations, initially brief and clinical, gradually evolved into something more thoughtful. Discussions about identity, transformation, and the nature of personhood. The strangest part, Carlo confessed during one such exchange, is remembering being 4 different beings simultaneously. Each fragment believed itself to be the authentic me. His clay features shifted subtly as he spoke, unconsciously reflecting the complex emotions beneath, which raises the question, was any of them right? Batman considered this carefully. Perhaps they all were, in part. We all contain contradictions, aspects of ourselves that seem at odds yet somehow coexist. Carlo nodded slowly, his form rippling with contemplation, like the actor who becomes so immersed in a role that he momentarily forgets himself, yet is somehow more authentic in that forgetting. A hint of the old performer emerged in his voice, the resonant tones that had once captivated audiences. I've been many things, Batman. Monster, victim, villain. but I'm beginning to wonder if there might be one more role left to play. What role would that be? Batman asked. Clayface's features settled into a melancholy smile. That's the question, isn't it? What performance remains for someone like me? He gestured to his clay body. When your very form is mutable, what shape best expresses your true nature? The question lingered between them, unanswered yet profound. As Batman departed Arkham that evening, the city's lights reflecting off rain-slicked streets, he found himself pondering Carlo's words. For a man who had split into pieces and found wholeness again, the search for authentic identity would never be simple. Neither man could have predicted how soon that question would be answered, nor how the final act of Basil Carlo's strange, tragic story would begin to unfold. In the shadows of Gotham, forces were already moving, drawing Clayface toward what would become his most meaningful performance, a still life rendered in living clay. Rain fell in gentle sheets across Gotham Square, droplets catching the amber glow of streetlights and transforming the scene into an impressionist painting of urban twilight. The crowd that had gathered stood in reverent silence, umbrellas forming a patchwork canopy above upturned faces, their collective attention focused on what had appeared overnight, a statue of such exquisite craftsmanship that it seemed almost alive despite its stillness. Standing 20 feet tall on a marble pedestal, the figure captured Basil Carlo, Clayface, in his imagined perfect form, part classical hero, part modern celebrity, face tilted toward an invisible spotlight. The sculpture possessed such detail that individual pores seemed to breathe in the rain, muscles tense beneath the surface as if preparing to step from the pedestal at any moment. Yet it remained motionless, its outstretched hand frozen in a permanent greeting to admirers who would never stop coming. From his vantage point atop the nearby Gotham Central Bank, Batman observed the gathering crowd through rain-streaked lenses. The Batsuit's enhanced hearing picked up their murmured conversations, speculation about the statue's origin, admiration for its artistry, debates about whether it should remain in the square or be moved to a museum. Quite remarkable. Alfred's voice came through the Cowl's comm system. When the alert first came in about an unauthorized structure in Gotham Square, I hardly expected a masterpiece. It's Clayface's work, Batman replied, his voice barely audible over the gentle patter of rain. The question is whether he commissioned it or created it himself. You don't think? I do. The composition is too perfect, too personal. No sculpture could capture that expression without intimate knowledge of the subject. Batman adjusted his cowl's optics, scanning the statue for heat signatures. Where he expected to find nothing, a faint core of warmth registered at the statue's center. Not hot enough to be a normal human body, but warmer than ambient clay should be. Alfred, the statue's core is maintaining temperature despite the rain. I'm picking up what looks like a low-level metabolic signature. A pause on the Carlo has somehow incorporated himself into the work. Not just incorporated. I think he's become the statue entirely. Some kind of suspended animation. Batman moved closer to the edge of the rooftop, studying the crowd below. The question is why? Clayface has never shown interest in public art before. Perhaps the answer lies in the work's title? There must be a plaque or inscription. Batman zoomed in on the statue's base. Carved in elegant script, still life, a final performance by Basil Carlo. Final performance, Batman repeated. That's concerning. The rain intensified, washing over the statue in rivulets that seemed to follow the contours of muscle and bone with unnatural precision. The clay wasn't absorbing water as it should. Another sign that this was more than simple sculpture. Master Bruce, you might want to see the news coverage. It's being live-streamed across Gotham. Batman's cowl display activated, showing a GCN reporter standing before the statue, microphone clutched against the rain. Behind her, the growing crowd had begun laying flowers at the statue's base. What art critics are already calling the most significant public art installation in Gotham's history, the reporter was saying. Sources close to the actor-turned-villain reveal that Basil Carlo had been diagnosed with a terminal degradation of his clay form. Speculation suggests this statue might be his attempt to preserve himself in a final, perfect form before his body failed completely. Batman frowned. That's new information. Did we have any intelligence about Clayface's condition deteriorating? None, Alfred confirmed, though he has been unusually quiet for the past 6 months. No sightings, no criminal activity, the reporter continued. The mayor's office has issued a statement saying they will respect the artistic integrity of the piece while ensuring public safety. Art historians from Gotham University have already begun documenting what they're calling a masterwork that blurs the line between villain and victim, performer and performance. They're treating it like art instead of a potential threat, Batman noted. We need to clear the square until we understand what's happening. Might I suggest a subtler approach, Alfred advised. If this truly is Clayface's final act, disrupting it could trigger unpredictable consequences. Batman considered this, watching as more people joined the gathering below. The statue seemed to draw them like a magnet. Despite the worsening weather, there was something almost hypnotic about its presence, an uncanny quality that transcended ordinary sculpture. I'll approach covertly, have the Batmobile ready 2 blocks east, and alert Gordon that we may need to evacuate the square on short notice. Very good, sir. And might I suggest bringing a sample kit? If Mr. Carlo has indeed found a way to stabilize his form, understanding the process could be valuable. Batman descended silently, using the rainfall as cover for his movement between buildings. The weather had thinned the crowd somewhat, but a dedicated core of spectators remained, artists sketching the statue, photographers capturing its otherworldly presence, ordinary citizens simply standing in contemplation. He approached from behind, blending with shadows cast by nearby trees. Up close, the statue's craftsmanship was even more impressive. Every detail of Carlo's imagined perfect self rendered with painful precision. The face combined features from his early film career with idealized elements that had never existed in reality. The perfect nose he'd always wanted, the strong jawline that had begun to sag before his transformation into Clayface. "It's beautiful, isn't it?" came a quiet voice beside him. Batman turned to find a young woman in a wheelchair, her frail form protected from the rain by a clear plastic poncho. Despite her apparent physical weakness, her eyes were bright with appreciation as she gazed at the statue. "You're not here for the art," she continued, not looking at Batman directly. "You're here because you think it's dangerous." "Who are you?" Batman asked, keeping his voice low. "Emily Chen. I was a drama student at Professor Carlo's before he changed." She smiled faintly. "Don't worry. I'm not a threat. Terminal illness gives you a certain perspective about what's worth being afraid of." Batman studied her. "You knew Carlo personally?" "He guest lectured at Gotham U for 1 semester. Before the accident, before the clay." Emily's eyes remained fixed on the statue. "He was brilliant. Troubled, but brilliant. This," she gestured toward the sculpture, "this is what he always wanted. To be remembered. To be perfect in someone's eyes, even if only his own." "You think this is just about legacy?" Batman asked, not entirely convinced. Emily's laugh turned into a soft cough. "Nothing is just. Anything with artists like Carlo. But I recognize the pose. It's from his final scene in The Crimson Ghost, the moment before his character accepts his fate. She paused, collecting her breath. Did you know that was his favorite role? He told us once that it was the only time he felt truly seen by an audience. Batman's cowl scanned the statue again, focusing on structural anomalies. The core temperature remained steady, and now he detected faint electrical activity. Something like neural patterns, but slower, as if operating at a fraction of normal speed. Emily, I need you to move back. This isn't just a statue. Her smile broadened. Of course it isn't. That's why it matters. Before Batman could respond, his comm activated. Sir, Alfred's voice held controlled urgency. Wayne Tech Security has detected an unauthorized access attempt to their neural interface laboratory. Someone appears to be creating a connection to experimental equipment from an external source. Batman glanced at the statue, pieces falling into place. They're not hacking in. The signal's coming from the statue. Clayface isn't just preserved, he's connected himself to something. I've accessed the security footage, Alfred continued. Dr. Kyoto's VR neural interface prototype is active, but the lab appears empty. Check for Kyoto, Batman instructed, already moving toward the statue's base. He may be trapped in the system. Emily watched him with knowing eyes. You won't stop this by breaking it, you know. He planned too carefully for that. Batman paused. What do you know? Only what he shared with his students. That art should transform both creator and viewer. That a true final performance should leave no one unchanged. Those words triggered Batman's memory, a case file from years earlier, when Carlo had rigged an entire theater to transform audience members into clay creatures under his control. If this statue was following similar logic, Alfred, scan the clay for chemical signatures. Look for compounds that could be aerosolized or absorbed through skin contact. Already underway, sir. Initial results show complex polymers similar to those Mr. Carlo used in his previous transformative attempts, but in a dormant state. They appear to require a catalyst to become active. Batman turned back to Emily. How many of his former students are here tonight? And of us who can still travel? She answered simply. He sent invitations, said it would be his greatest performance. The implications hit Batman like a physical blow. The crowd wasn't random. It contained specifically invited guests, potential triggers or catalysts for whatever Clayface had planned. And based on past encounters, those plans rarely ended well for the audiences involved. Alfred, alert Gordon. We need this square evacuated now. Master Bruce, there's more. The neural interface Dr. Kyoto developed was designed to allow consciousness to exist temporarily in a virtual space. If Clayface has connected himself to this technology, then his mind is active while his body remains in suspended animation, Batman finished. He's created a perfect preservation method, not just for his body, but for his consciousness. Emily's voice grew softer. He always said the body was just a vessel. The true immortality came from being remembered. Her breathing had become more labored, but her eyes remained fixed on the statue with something like adoration. Batman's mind raced through possibilities. If Clayface had linked his consciousness to Wayne Tech's neural interface, then he wasn't just preserved, he was somewhere accessible. A virtual space created from his own imagination, perhaps, or memories reconstructed as a habitable mental landscape. Alfred, I need the portable neural interface from the Batmobile. If Clayface's mind is active in a virtual environment, I need to access it. Sir, I must strongly advise against this. The technology is experimental at best. Entering another consciousness, particularly one as unstable as Mr. Carlo's. We don't have a choice. If this statue is rigged to transform people, or worse, we need to stop it at the source. Batman turned to Emily. You need to leave. Get as far from the square as possible. For the first time, she turned her wheelchair to face him directly. I can't. Don't you understand? This is his gift to us, to those of us who are running out of time, a chance to be part of something permanent. Before Batman could respond, Gordon's voice came through emergency frequencies. All units to Gotham Square, begin evacuation procedures. This is not a drill. Rain continued to fall as police vehicles appeared at the square's perimeter, lights painting the gathered crowd in alternating blue and red. Officers began moving through the spectators, directing them toward exit points while maintaining a deliberate calm. Batman used the developing situation as cover to retrieve the neural interface from the Batmobile, a sleek headset and control pad disguised as standard equipment in his utility belt. As he returned to the statue's base, he found Emily still there, stubbornly refusing officers' attempts to move her. Miss Chen, please, a young officer was saying. The area isn't safe. Nothing is safe, she replied, with the certainty of someone who had faced greater fears. But some things are worth the risk. Batman intervened. I'll handle this, officer. As the policeman nodded and moved on, Batman knelt beside Emily's wheelchair. You know what Carlo is planning. Tell me. Her eyes held a feverish intensity. Transformation. Renaissance. He's creating a moment that will never end, a performance that transforms the audience into the art itself. She reached into her poncho and withdrew a small clay figurine. He gave these to all his students, said they would be our tickets to the final show. Batman took the figurine, a miniature replica of the statue itself, still slightly warm to the touch. Scanning it revealed the same polymer compounds present in the larger sculpture, but more activated, closer to their transformative state. Alfred, the figurines are catalysts. They're designed to interact with the main statue. We need to find all of them. Police are conducting searches of all evacuees, sir, but the rain is complicating matters. The water appears to be accelerating the chemical reactions in the clay. Batman looked up at the statue, watching how the rainwater followed unnatural patterns across its surface, pooling in specific areas before being absorbed. The water wasn't degrading the clay, it was feeding it, preparing it. It's a timed reaction, he realized. The rain activates the statue, the figurines activate the people. We're running out of time. Then go, Emily said simply. Find him in there, talk to him. He always said you were his most worthy audience. Batman adjusted the neural interface headset, calibrating it to detect and interface with the signals emanating from the statue. Alfred, monitor my vital signs. If anything appears unstable, use the emergency override to pull me out. The connection appears to be forming, sir, but I must emphasize we have no idea what form Mr. Carlo's consciousness has taken inside this virtual environment. It could be completely alien to our understanding of reality. I've navigated Scarecrow's fear-toxin dreamscapes. Batman replied grimly. I can handle Clayface's theater. With the interface active, Batman placed his hand against the statue's base, allowing the system to locate and connect with the signals originating from its core. The world around him, the rain, the police lights, Emily's watching eyes began to fade, replaced by a growing darkness that felt both empty and somehow charged with potential. Then, like a theater's curtain rising, the darkness gave way to light, and Batman found himself standing on a stage. The theater that materialized around him combined elements from various periods of Gotham's architectural history: the ornate balconies of the Monarch Theater, the modernist ceiling of the Gotham Center for Performing Arts, the intimate stage layout of the university's experimental black box. It was a composite space, idealized and impossible, lit by invisible sources that cast everything in a warm, golden glow. The seats were filled with silent figures, not people, but mannequins formed of clay, each one bearing the face of someone Batman recognized from Gotham's elite society pages. Critics, producers, wealthy patrons of the arts, all preserved in expressions of rapt attention, forever the perfect audience. "They never really looked at me this way," came a resonant voice from the wings, not until it was too late. Basil Carlo, or the virtual representation of his consciousness, stepped onto the stage. He wore the formal attire of a classical theatre actor, his face a perfect recreation of his pre-accident appearance, but idealized, smoothed of imperfections. Unlike the mannequin audience, he moved with fluid grace, each gesture purposeful and precise. "Batman, I wondered if you'd attend my final performance." Carlo spread his arms, indicating the theater around them. "What do you think of my creation? A permanent standing ovation, a moment of perfect appreciation that will never fade or diminish." Batman remained alert, aware that in this environment reality itself was subject to Carlo's will. "This isn't real, Basil. You've connected yourself to an experimental neural interface. Your consciousness is trapped in a simulation while your physical form remains in suspended animation." Carlo laughed, the sound echoing unnaturally through the theater. "Trapped? I've escaped, Batman, from a body that was failing, from a world that never truly appreciated my art." He gestured, and the theater's architecture shifted subtly, becoming grander, more imposing. "Here, I am the creator of everything, the ultimate auteur. And what about the people outside, the students you've drawn to your statue? What happens to them when your performance reaches its climax?" A smile spread across Carlo's face, too wide, betraying the inhuman nature beneath his perfect appearance. "They become part of the art, preserved in a moment of perfect appreciation. Isn't that what any artist wants? An audience that never leaves, never forgets, never moves on to the next distraction." "You're planning to transform them," Batman stated flatly, "like you were transformed. Turn them into clay creatures under your control, not under my control." Carlo shook his head, seeming genuinely offended by the suggestion. "With me, part of something greater than their small, limited lives." His expression softened with what appeared to be genuine compassion. "You saw Emily. How much time do you think she has left? Months? Weeks? But as part of my masterpiece, she'll exist forever." Batman took a step forward, and the stage floor rippled slightly beneath his feet. "You don't have the right to make that choice for her, or for any of them. They've already chosen." Carlo's voice hardened. "They accepted my invitation. They came to see the performance. They carried the tokens of transformation." He smiled again, this time with a hint of his old theatrical charm. "The audience always chooses to suspend their disbelief, Batman. I'm just making the suspension permanent." Outside, in the physical world, Alfred monitored the neural connection with growing concern. "His vital signs are stable, but the neural patterns are concerning," he reported to Gordon, who had established a command center at the square's edge. "Mr. Carlo appears to be attempting to rewrite the parameters of the interface itself." Gordon looked up at the statue, which had begun to develop a subtle sheen despite the rain, as if sweating from within. "In English, Alfred is trying to take control of the connection, to pull Batman deeper in, rather than allowing him to maintain separation between their consciousness." On stage, Batman felt the subtle shift in the environment, the theater's dimensions expanding almost imperceptibly. The golden light growing warmer, more inviting. Carlo's virtual form seemed more solid somehow, while Batman's own presence felt increasingly tenuous. "You feel it, don't you?" Carlo observed. "The boundaries thinning. Soon there won't be a distinction between your mind and this environment." He approached with the confident stride of a lead actor taking center stage. "Why fight it? You've always appreciated art, Bruce, more than most of the Philistines who run this city. You could be my most perfect audience member." The use of his real name didn't surprise Batman. In this mental landscape, such knowledge was likely accessible. What concerned him more was the genuine appeal he felt to Carlo's offer. The theater was beautiful, the perpetual moment of artistic appreciation seductive in its permanence. A part of him, perhaps the exhausted part that carried Gotham's weight night after night, found something tempting in the idea of stillness, of a moment that never degraded into the next crisis. "Alfred," he sub-vocalized, uncertain if the connection still functioned. "The interface is becoming more immersive. Carlo is trying to integrate my consciousness with the environment." To his relief, Alfred's voice came through, though distantly. "I suspected as much, sir. His neural patterns are attempting to synchronize with yours. I believe he's trying to add you to his collection." Batman refocused on Carlo, who was watching him with the patient indulgence of a director waiting for an actor to find their motivation. "The statue in Gotham Square. It's more than just your preserved form, isn't it? What happens when the transformation begins? Art becomes life. Life becomes art." Carlo gestured expansively, and the theater around them briefly flickered, showing glimpses of Gotham Square, but a changed version where clay flowed like living tissue across buildings and streets, reshaping the city into theatrical tableaus. A city that never appreciated beauty will become beauty itself. The vision confirmed Batman's worst fears. "You're planning to transform Gotham itself. The statue is a conduit. A seed," Carlo corrected, "from which a new world will grow, unchanging, perfect." His expression became almost tender. "No more crime, no more decay, no more watching beautiful things crumble with time. Isn't that what you want too, in your own way? To preserve Gotham in some ideal form?" Carlo's words found purchase in Batman's mind, not because he agreed, but because he recognized the distorted reflection of his own mission. They both sought to reshape Gotham, to protect it from forces that would degrade it. The difference lay in their understanding of what made the city worth saving. "Gotham lives because it changes," Batman countered. "Because people fight every day to make it better, even knowing they might fail. What you're offering isn't preservation, it's death disguised as immortality." Carlo's perfect face twisted with sudden anger, and the theater darkened around them. "What do you know of immortality? You hide behind a mask, hoping history will remember a symbol rather than a man. I'm offering true permanence, not just a legacy but eternal presence." The stage beneath them began to warp, the floorboards flowing like liquid clay. Batman struggled to maintain his footing as Carlo's control of the environment tightened. "Sir," Alfred's voice came through, more urgent now. "His neural patterns are accelerating. I believe he's preparing to initiate whatever transformation he has planned." Outside, in Gotham Square, Gordon watched as the statue began to change. Subtle movements barely perceptible through the rain, a rippling beneath the surface, like muscles tensing before action. "Everyone back," he ordered, drawing his sidearm more from instinct than any belief it would be effective. "Get bomb squad perimeter established now." Emily remained near the statue's base, her wheelchair positioned like a sentinel. Officers had tried twice more to remove her, but something in her determination had given them pause. She watched the subtle changes in the clay with the rapt attention of a theatre-goer at a crucial dramatic moment. Inside the neural interface, the theatre had transformed into a nightmare version of itself. The golden light replaced by harsh theatrical spotlights that cast everything in stark contrast. The clay audience had begun to move, their heads turning in unison to watch the confrontation on stage. "They're coming to life out there, aren't they?" Batman realized. "Your perfect moment is beginning." Carlos smiled, and for an instant his face shifted, showing glimpses of his true Clayface form beneath the handsome human mask. A final act always gathers momentum. No stopping it now. Batman needed to disrupt the connection, to break Carlo's concentration, or corrupt the interface that linked his consciousness to the statue. But in this environment, Carlo held every advantage, controlling reality itself with the expertise of a master stagecraft director. "Alfred," Batman sub-vocalized. "The neural patterns. What's sustaining them?" There must be a power source connecting Carlo to the Wayne Tech interface. Alfred's voice came through faintly. "The connection appears to be powered by the statue itself, sir. Some kind of bioelectrical current generated by the clay form." "Then we need to interrupt it. Can you send a counter-signal through my interface, something to disrupt his control?" "I can attempt it, but..." Alfred's voice cut out as Carlo waved a dismissive hand. "Enough consultation with the stage manager," the actor said coldly. "This is between us now, artist and critic, creator and destroyer." The stage had become completely fluid beneath them, forcing Batman to constantly adjust his balance. Around them, the theater began to fracture, showing glimpses of other settings. Film sets where Carlo had performed, theaters where he had taken his bows, the laboratory where he had first transformed into Clayface. "Your consciousness is degrading," Batman observed. "You can't maintain this environment and control the statue simultaneously. You are overextending yourself." Carlo laughed, but the sound warped unnaturally. "Perhaps. But I only need to maintain control long enough for the transformation to begin. After that, it becomes self-sustaining." In Gotham Square, the statue's surface had developed a network of fine cracks, not breaking apart, but shifting, preparing to move. The rain had intensified, flowing across the clay in rivulets that pulsed with unnatural rhythm. Gordon's radio crackled. "Commissioner, we're picking up seismic activity centered on the statue. Whatever's happening, it's affecting the ground beneath it." Alfred, monitoring from the Batcave, made a crucial connection. The clay figurines. They're receivers, not just catalysts. They're designed to channel energy from the main statue, creating a network throughout the square. Inside the neural interface, Batman fought to maintain his sense of self as the environment became increasingly chaotic. Carlo appeared to be losing definition as well, his perfect form occasionally melting into his Clayface appearance before reforming. "You're failing, Basil." Batman pressed the advantage. "Your body can't sustain this level of neural activity while maintaining suspended animation. You need to disconnect before you lose control completely." "I will not be forgotten," Carlo roared, and the entire theater shuddered. Not again. Not like every other performance that faded from memory. His face shifted rapidly between his various film roles, his human appearance and his monster form. "This will be permanent. This will last." Batman recognized the desperation driving Carlo. Not just villainous ambition, but the primal fear of an artist facing oblivion. In that moment, he saw a potential path forward that didn't require defeating Clayface, but reaching the man within. Alfred, he managed to sub-vocalize through the chaotic connection. Carlo's old performances. You mentioned Hamlet, the monologue he was famous for. Alfred's voice returned, faint but present. Yes, his Hamlet was considered definitive for a generation. His to be or not to be speech won him the Gotham Critics Award in I Need You to Recite It, broadcast it through my connection, remind him of his greatest performance. There was a moment of hesitation before Alfred's cultured voice began to flow through the interface. To be or not to be, that is the question. Whether 'tis nobler in the mind to suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune. The effect was immediate. Carlo froze, his shifting form stabilizing as Alfred's precise, respectful delivery of Shakespeare's words filled the virtual theater. The chaos around them stilled, the environment shifting back toward the perfect theater of earlier. Or to take arms against a sea of troubles, and by opposing end them, Alfred continued, his voice growing stronger in the interface. Carlo's expression changed from rage to wonder. I know these words, he whispered, his voice momentarily free of distortion. I spoke them once, to die, to sleep, no more, and by a sleep to say we end the heartache and the 1,000 natural shocks that flesh is heir to. Batman took a careful step forward on the now stable stage. You were Hamlet at the Monarch Theatre, 1988. The critics called it transcendent, the definitive interpretation of our generation. They said I brought new life to ancient words, Carlo murmured, seeming to look through Batman at some distant memory. Alfred continued, 'Tis a consummation devoutly to be wished, to die, to sleep, perchance to dream. You weren't forgotten, Basil, Batman pressed gently. Your performances live on in everyone who saw them, in students like Emily who still study your techniques. Carlo's perfect face showed genuine surprise. Emily remembers. She's outside right now, watching your final performance. But this, Batman gestured to the unstable theater around them. This isn't worthy of your legacy. Forcing people to become your audience doesn't honor your art. It corrupts it. In Gotham Square, the statue had gone still again, the network of cracks no longer spreading. Emily looked up at it with a mixture of hope and sadness, as if recognizing a crucial moment in an unfolding drama. Alfred's voice continued to flow through the neural interface. Aye, there's the rub, for in that sleep of death, what dreams may come, when we have shuffled off this mortal coil, must give us pause. Carlo's form had stabilized further, and now he moved across the stage with something of his old theatrical grace. I played him as a man afraid of being forgotten, he said softly, afraid that after death, even his noblest actions would disappear like ripples in water. There's a difference between being remembered and being preserved, Batman said. True legacy lies in influence, in how you changed others, not in forcing them to remain unchanged. The virtual theater had begun to simplify, shedding its impossible grandeur for something more authentic. A replica of the Monarch Theatre as it had been during Carlo's triumphant run as Hamlet. The clay audience had disappeared, replaced by empty seats waiting for real people to fill them. For who would bear the whips and scorns of time, Alfred continued. The oppressor's wrong, the proud man's contumely, the pangs of despised love, the law's delay, the insolence of office, and the spurns that patient merit of the unworthy takes. I remember every word, Carlo said with quiet wonder. Every inflection, every pause. He turned to Batman with newfound clarity. I wanted to preserve that feeling, the perfect moment when I knew I had created something truly beautiful, but you preserved the wrong thing. Batman replied. Not the moment itself, but your fear of losing it. That's what's driving the transformation outside. Not love of art, but fear of its transience. In Gotham Square, Gordon watched in astonishment as the statue began to lose its perfect definition. The surface seemed to soften, details blurring slightly, as if the clay was relaxing its rigid hold on form. "What's happening?" he demanded of Alfred through their communication link. "I believe," Alfred replied with cautious optimism, "that Master Bruce is reaching him." Inside the neural interface, Carlo moved to center stage, assuming the classical posture of Hamlet in his famous soliloquy. As Alfred's voice continued providing the words, Carlo began to silently perform the accompanying gestures and expressions, the physical language that had made his interpretation so memorable. When he himself might his quietus make with a bare bodkin, who would Fardels bear to grunt and sweat under a wary life? Batman recognized what was happening. Carlo was reconnecting with the artistic truth at his core, separating it from the fear and rage that had corrupted it. Your performance changed people, Basil. It lives in their memory, in how they understand Shakespeare now. That's immortality. Not freezing a moment, but creating one that continues to affect the future. Carlo completed his silent performance as Alfred delivered the final lines. "Thus conscience does make cowards of us all, and thus the native hue of resolution is sicklied o'er with the pale cast of thought, and enterprises of great pith and moment with this regard their currents turn awry, and lose the name of action." A profound silence filled the virtual theatre. Carlo stood motionless at center stage, head bowed in the final pose of the soliloquy. When he looked up, his face had shed its perfect mask, revealing his true Clayface appearance, but somehow noble now, accepting of its nature rather than fighting against it. "I understand now," he said, his voice no longer the polished tones of his idealized self, but the gravelly resonance of Clayface. True art isn't preserved. It's remembered, interpreted, changed by each person who experiences it. The theater around them began to dissolve, not violently, but gently, like a stage set being struck after a final performance. "The statue," Batman pressed. "The transformation you planned, you need to stop it." "It's already stopping," Carlo replied with a sad smile. "I'm letting go." He gestured to the dissolving environment. "This isn't real art. It's just hiding from time." In Gotham Square, the statue's surface continued to soften, details melting away as the form lost definition. Emily watched with tears streaming down her face, matching the rain that continued to fall. Gordon approached her cautiously. "Is it safe now?" She nodded without taking her eyes from the dissolving sculpture. "He's saying goodbye, the proper way, with a curtain call." Inside the neural interface, the theater had almost completely disappeared, leaving Batman and Clayface in an undefined space of fading light. "What happens to you now?" Batman asked. "My body is degrading," Clayface answered with remarkable calm. "That part was true. The clay is losing cohesion. Soon there will be nothing left to hold my consciousness." He gestured to the emptiness around them. "This was my attempt to escape that fate. Wayne Tech has been researching stabilization techniques for metamorphic conditions," Batman offered. "There might be a way to..." Clayface shook his head. "No, I've had my time on stage, more than most." A look of genuine curiosity crossed his monstrous features. "Do you think they'll remember me? Not just the monster, but the actor." "Emily does," Batman answered honestly. "And others will too, if they are shown the performances rather than just the tragedy that followed. That would be enough," Clayface said softly. To be remembered for something beautiful, even if briefly. The neural interface began to flicker, the connection weakening as Clayface's physical form continued to degrade. Go, he urged Batman. The statue is harmless now. Just clay returning to clay. Batman felt the connection pulling him back toward physical reality, but resisted momentarily. Is there anything you want me to tell them, your audience? Clayface considered this, then smiled, a strange expression on his inhuman face, but somehow capturing the dignity of the actor he had once been. Tell them the performance was for them, not for me. With those words, the connection dissolved completely, and Batman found himself back in Gotham Square, hand still pressed against the statue's base. But the statue itself had changed dramatically. No longer a perfect representation of Carlo's idealized self, but a softening, abstract form that barely suggested a human figure. As he watched, it continued to lose definition, clay flowing down to pool around its base. Emily sat nearby in her wheelchair, watching the dissolution with peaceful acceptance. He remembered, she said simply when she noticed Batman's return. He remembered what acting is really about. Gordon approached, keeping a wary distance from the melting statue. Is it over? Batman nodded. The threat is neutralized. The statue was connected to Wayne Tech's neural interface. Carlo was trying to preserve his consciousness while transforming the clay figurines, and eventually the city itself. And now? Now he's letting go. Batman watched as the formless clay continued to settle. His body was degrading. This was his attempt to escape that fate by transforming others to join him in a preserved state. Emily wheeled closer to the dissolving statue. He was always afraid of being forgotten. That's what drove him. As an actor, as a villain, and finally as whatever he became. She looked up at Batman. Will people remember the good parts? The performances, not just the monster? Depends on what stories we choose to tell, Batman replied, thinking of his own potential legacy. How future generations might remember the symbol he had created. Over the next hours, the statue continued its gentle collapse, eventually becoming nothing more than a shapeless mound of inert clay. Analysis confirmed it was now ordinary material, chemically inert, its strange properties gone, along with the consciousness that had animated it. The figurines collected from Carlo's former students had also returned to normal clay, simple mementos now, rather than potential triggers for transformation. Emily kept hers, placing it carefully in her lap as emergency services finally convinced her to leave the square. What should we do with this? Gordon asked later, gesturing to the formless clay that had once been both Basil Carlo and his final masterpiece. Batman considered the question. Let the art community decide. It was created as art, however dangerous its intent. Perhaps it should end as art as well. In the following weeks, the Gotham Museum of Modern Art installed a simple bronze plaque where the statue had stood. It read only, Still Life, the final performance of Basil Carlo, Clayface. A reminder that true art lives not in preservation, but in memory. Emily Chen attended the small ceremony marking the plaque's installation. Her health had deteriorated further, but she insisted on being present, the small clay figurine still clutched in her weakened hands. He would have hated the plaque, she told Batman, who had appeared silently beside her wheelchair as the crowd dispersed. Too small, not dramatic enough. But he would have appreciated being remembered, Batman replied. She smiled faintly. Yes. That's all he really wanted. Her gaze drifted to the empty space where the statue had stood. You know, In class, he used to tell us that an actor's true immortality isn't in recordings or photographs, but in how they change their audience, how the performance continues to live in those who experienced it. Later that night, Batman stood on a rooftop overlooking Gotham Square. The rain had returned, washing the empty space where Carlo's statue had briefly commanded the city's attention. A rather philosophical end to the affair, Alfred commented through the comm. Though I confess, I never expected my amateur Shakespeare recitation to play such a crucial role. It wasn't the words themselves, Batman replied. It was hearing them spoken with respect, being reminded that his art had meaning beyond his fear of being forgotten. Quite profound, sir. The idea that we achieve immortality not through preservation but through influence. Batman watched as late-night pedestrians crossed the square, a few pausing briefly to read the small plaque before continuing on their way. Carlo chose the wrong approach, but his fear was human, universal. The fear of being forgotten, Alfred asked, of one's life amounting to nothing after it ends. Yes. Batman's gaze swept across the city skyline, the Wayne Enterprises tower prominent among Gotham's architectural forest. We all build our monuments, hoping they'll outlast us. Some more successfully than others, I'd venture to say, Alfred observed dryly, though I doubt Thomas and Martha Wayne would have measured their legacy in buildings or bank accounts. Batman nodded, understanding the gentle reminder. His parents' true legacy wasn't Wayne Enterprises, or even the charitable foundation that bore their name. It was the values they had instilled in their son, values that had shaped his mission to protect Gotham. Perhaps Carlo had finally understood that distinction in his last moments, the difference between preservation and influence, between maintaining a perfect form and creating something that continues to affect the world long after the creator is gone. As Batman prepared to fire his grapnel and continue his patrol, he paused for a final look at the empty space in Gotham Square. No trace remained of the perfect statue or the consciousness it had briefly contained. Nothing but a small plaque and the memories of those who had witnessed its brief, strange existence. Yet somehow, that seemed a more fitting monument than the eternal, unchanging perfection Clayface had sought. Not a moment frozen in time, but a story that would continue to be told, changing with each telling, living in the minds of those who heard it, rather than in clay that could never truly capture the complexity of a human life. With that thought, Batman swung away into the Gotham night, leaving the empty square behind, a space once again open to whatever the city's ever-changing future might bring. And so our tale of Gotham comes to an end. Let the gentle night embrace you as you drift toward peaceful dreams, knowing that somewhere in the darkness, the Dark Knight watches over his city. If you're not asleep yet, we will now play the ambience of Gotham City at night to help you fall asleep. And if you were just listening to our tales, we will see you next time. Good night and sleep well.